Canada supports UN resolution for ceasefire. Tensions are emerging in the Liberal caucus over the UN vote. This is the Great White North Report.
I'm in love with the system, never going home. I'm in love.
Alright, while I was working, it came out that Canada had voted in the UN to call for a ceasefire in the Israeli-Hamas war, which I find appalling and hypocritical. At one time, we're saying, yeah, Israel has the right to defend itself and give them the okay to go after Hamas, but at the same time, you can't kill civilians while you're at it. Well, that plays into Hamas's hands because Hamas uses its civilians to shield itself. They're buried deep in the ground within the city itself. It's not like it's a conventional army. In order to get to Hamas, they have to destroy the city block by block, get to the tunnels and all the safe houses. The people have been told the Israelis has the most moral army in the world, I think. They've constantly warned the civilian population of Gaza to get the hell out of the way. They have gone to the south towards the Rafah border crossing with Egypt. Egypt will not let them in. Egypt's reasoning is that if they let them in, they won't leave. And they'll have refugee camps in the Sinai. Israel has repeatedly said they're not going to eject anyone. Once it's over, the Gazans can go back. But Egypt doesn't trust that. They don't want them. They do not want the Gazans. So Trudeau, who is just an absolute hypocritical idiot, released joint statement of Prime Ministers in New Zealand, Australia calling for a ceasefire. You know what it is? It's all about politics. Trudeau lost the funding of some very wealthy Muslims in Canada. The Hunter Club, whatever it's called, they quit the Laurier Club and will no longer support the Liberal Party financially in the next election. The Liberals are scared shitless of that because then they lose money, a lot of money. And they will probably lose the Muslim vote to the NDP because that's about the only thing they're going to go to. So Canada voted in favor of a non-binding United Nations resolution calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in the Israeli-Hamas war. Right. You know, this is hypocritical. In World War II, Canada was part of the huge bombing raids that destroyed Cologne and Dresden. Thousands of Germans were killed. Did we cry about it? No. Was there a huge upcry? No. Not every German citizen was guilty. The Nazis were. The Nazis were evil. Hamas is evil. It's the same thing. I'm sorry for the people of Gaza. So from the very beginning, we have said that Israel has the right to defend itself. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly told reporters. How Israel defends itself matters. Well, of course, they're defending themselves by taking out Hamas. Ever since Hamas took over the Gaza Strip, Israel has been subjected to rocket attacks and raids and whatnot. This time, Hamas went too far, and the Israelis retaliated hard. Well, at the same time, they've been warning people, telling them to get the hell out of the way. They even tell them where they're going to strike next. So there are 153 votes in favor, 10 against, and 23 absentees. The United States is not going to vote for it. Not yet, anyway. The Gaza Health Authority, which is controlled by Hamas, the listed terrorist entity in Canada, said that more than 18,000 Gazans have been killed since October 7th. Yeah, we're going to listen to the Gaza Health Authority. Like, they're really trustworthy. Come on. You take that with a grain of salt. I don't doubt that there's been civilians killed, but that many? How many of them are? I think they're counting militants on top of that. So when a Hamas military personnel get killed, they count that with the civilian population of Gazans. So take that with a grain of salt. Remember, they're adding things. They say it will enhance the cycle of violence. It's never stopped the cycle of violence. Ever since 1933, with the Arab uprising against the British Mandate. Joly said a ceasefire cannot be one side. She said Hamas must lay down its arms and release the remaining hostages it captured. Like, that's asking a lot. Hamas will not give up its power. It's not going to lay down its arms, and it will not release the remaining hostages unless they get a better exchange rate. Before, it was 3 Hamas prisoners for 1 hostage. Now they want to up it, because now they're getting into the men, releasing men. Canada's ambassador to the UN, Bob Rae. Oh, Christ, the Rae days again. This guy's still around. That Canada supports for Israel still stands. He said Canada backed the resolution due to the humanitarian situation in Gaza. In other words, their conscience was prickling them, and the fact they're losing money because of this. Well then, start setting up refugee camps in the Sinai. What else is UNRWA for? United Nations Relief, whatever the hell it's stands for, the one that deals strictly with the Arabs of Palestine. Now, Israel's ambassador to Canada said the UN resolution changes nothing on the ground unless they're ready to send troops in to fight Israel, which is not a good idea, and something Canada's not going to do. Nothing's going to happen. Is Canada going to send troops to try and enforce something? No. I'm not going to put our troops in the middle of this. Why would I do that? And Moed's right. Calling for a ceasefire may appease political supporters, but it doesn't make any difference. It has no significance for these people who are suffering right now under the terrorist regime of Hamas. It's true. Let's look at some examples. Look at Singapore. Singapore is an island nation and very successful. San Marino is a small nation or principality in the middle of Italy. It's doing well. The Vatican is a city-state of its own. It's doing well. Liechtenstein is another small state, which stands between Switzerland and Austria, doing well. Luxembourg, Andorra, administered by, is another one. Hong Kong before the Chinese took over. Gaza should get rid of Hamas, disavow any violence towards Israel, so it'll help Israel. So Israel might be inclined to help them again. Rebuild your city into something like those 7 I mentioned. The cycle of violence is never going to go anywhere. It's been going on since 1936. It hasn't solved anything. Talking with Hamas will not make any difference and won't change anything. In fact, Hamas will view it as a victory. Any ceasefire works to Hamas's favor. It doesn't work for the Israeli favor. So two liberal MPs have disagreed publicly with their government's vote at the UN. One who's Jewish said any ceasefire must start with Hamas releasing hostages. Liberal MP Mendicino, who used to be a cabinet minister, also disagreed. Said it would be an unconditional ceasefire present that would only place in further jeopardy the safety and security of Israelis and Palestinians in Gaza. I think the two-state solution should no longer apply to Israel. It should apply to those who call themselves Palestinians. Gaza should be its own city-state, which it effectively is right now. The West Bank should be the Palestinian, where the Palestinian Authority sits. That should be the West Bank of Palestine, or Palestine. That's the two-state solution right there. Now, when they do humanitarian access to affected civilians, a lot of times Hamas will come and steal everything. UNRWA says the United Nations relief, whatever it is for them, says it won't travel within Gaza because their people are getting killed. Well, who's killing them? Why are they going into the middle of a fighting zone? No, you stay where the southern side, where they're all gathered, and that's where you distribute stuff. And you watch over and make sure you're guarding stuff. So he's talking about a two-state solution, which will never happen. Hamas has rejected it. It's part of Hamas's. Well, they'll never accept it. Neither will Hezbollah and others. The two-state solution is one for Gaza and one for the West Bank. That's it. Now, their statement with Australia and New Zealand said that Hamas must release all hostages and stop using Palestinian civilians as human shields and lay down its arms. Again, you're blowing hot air out of your ass. Never going to happen. There's no role for Hamas in the future governance of Gaza. So you're asking Hamas to give up its political military power. No, they'll cling to power until you eradicate them completely. Support the right to self-determination, oppose the forcible displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. The Israelis will let them back in. Israel gave it to them. Lock, stock, and barrel. And look what they did with it. Israel doesn't want Gaza back, and neither do the Egyptians, who had it from 1948 all the way up to 67, 68. So Anthony Hausfauer, he's one of those. He said he doesn't support an unconditional call for a ceasefire. And the Liberal caucus is divided over this. Some say they hope it'll bring global peace. Others say it amounts to Canada abandoning Israel while it's at war with extremists, which is true. You basically turn your back for political gain at home to try and woo back the Muslim supporters. That's all it is. It's a political game. Shame on the Liberal Party and who do this. And it says here that Hamas does not adhere to international law. Of course not. They never have. And to think they will is just to delude yourself. In fact, the resolution doesn't even mention the word Hamas. It also doesn't rule out allowing Hamas to participate in future governments in the Gaza Strip. Again, it'll just repeat itself what happened. Hamas will regain power, rebuild itself, start launching rocket attacks against Israel again, and launch another major raid in the future whenever they get a chance. Melanie Joly defended the vote again, talking about untold number of Palestinians without water, food, fuel, medicine, or shelter. They did it themselves by supporting Hamas. What do they expect? Bob Ray should shut his mouth. Former NDP premier. He's alarmed at the diminishing safe space for civilians in Gaza as Israel pushes further into the south. Well, the Israelis are at least warning them to get the hell out of the way. Again, you should be looking to Egypt. Tell Egypt to open its border with the condition that the Gazans will be allowed to return home once it's over. Israel will probably agree to it. So, of course, the Muslims who represent in the Canadian Parliament, Liberal MP Zalma Zaid, a Muslim who represents the Toronto riding, said she's grateful Canada voted in favor of a ceasefire. Again, the Muslims are sticking together because they view this as it's the Muslims versus the Jews. It's a classical religious war, and that's what the Muslims in this country have made it into. Instead of making it Hamas against Israel and taking a side there, they're too scared to say we support Hamas directly. Protect innocent civilians being killed in delusional person. How did she get elected being that dumb or that naive? Government House Leader Karina Gold said there's a diversity of viewpoints in the Liberal caucus because it's the only caucus that truly represents every aspect of Canadian society. Which means these people weren't picked for their brains. They were picked because they fit a criteria of diverseness and wokeness. That's it. That's the problem with the Canadian government. We don't exactly pick the brightest of the bunch. So again, Trudeau is digging his hole deeper. He's trying to woo back support from the Muslim community, who will probably go vote NDP next election. My thoughts are that the Liberals did this just to get support back, and they should be ashamed of themselves, very much so. Like I said, I want to see Hamas obliterated off the map, and I want the people of Gaza to rebuild something better. Not more violent, something better. Look around you. They should look around and see the city-states that exist in the world, the small states, and how well many of them have done, instead of what they were. Don't go back to that. Do something better. Become better. Then maybe Canada will support, maybe all Canadians will support you. And the two-state solution between Israel and the Arabs is done. It was done that's been a pipe dream. It'll never happen. 2000 was the last year they could have implemented it. After that, it's over. The two-state solution now is Gaza and the West Bank. But anyway, Canadians out there, let me know what you guys think of Trudeau's decision to vote for a ceasefire. Leave comments in the comments section. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Until next time, this has been The Great White.
I'm in love with the system, never going home.